Hello and welcome to this episode of the University of Strathclyde's Inspiring Conversation series. I'm Manish Joshi, CEO of Strathclyde Students Union, and in this episode of Inspiring Conversations, I'm delighted to be joined by Rabinder Buttar. Dr. Buttar is a global entrepreneur and the founder and former CEO of ClinTec International. Dr. Buttar is a clinical researcher with over 35 years' experience in the life sciences industry. She founded and grew global clinical research business ClinTec over the course of over 25 years. In 2018, it was acquired by one of the world's largest clinical companies, IQVIA. Prior to this, she gained experience within the pharmaceutical industry as well as within academic research and vaccine technology. Dr. Buttar and ClinTec have received over 30 industry awards and recognitions for leadership, business acumen and entrepreneurship, and she's been named as one of Britain's top 100 entrepreneurial women by Real Business and also one of Britain's top 100 scientists. Dr. Buttar is a Senior Enterprise Fellow at the University of Strathclyde and works alongside a group of other inspirational leaders who are inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs. Dr. Buttar recently received an honorary degree from the University of Strathclyde and continues to mentor and support young entrepreneurs, including within her new company, Oils in Bloom. Welcome, Rabinder. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you with us. So just to kick us off, can you tell us a bit about how you came to create such a successful global company?
Well, first of all, maybe I start a little bit from the beginning. I was at Strathclyde with my PhD in vaccine research, and then I went to work in Munich in Germany, and I gained quite a lot of experience in the pharmaceutical industry, developing new medicines and actually working on a blockbuster drug. And so I learned a lot very quickly. But then I had the opportunity to work from home as I relocated to north of Germany. And there I just started to offer services to different pharmaceutical companies, help them with their clinical research projects. And the more people I worked or talked to, the more they required from me. And within a few weeks and months, I found myself talking to people internationally and employing people internationally. And over the 26 years, grew a global clinical research business that spanned into more than 40 countries and worked with 27 of the top 50 biotech companies as well, and many big pharmaceuticals.
You make it sound very organic, as if you kind of went back to your home and then, 26 years later, but I'm sure there's a lot happened in between.
Yes.
And where did the company kind of end up in terms of headquarters and locations? Did you have physical bases in 40 countries, or what was the kind of model around that?
Well, first of all, I realised it was more about providing the best possible service, and many of my clients were wanting clinical trials that were international. So we needed people on the ground and who were clinical research experts and young CRAs who could go to the different hospitals locally and talk to the doctors. So we ended up developing teams in all the different countries. So actual clinical leaders on the ground and supported by really strong country managers who really could understand the culture, the local environment, and they also knew the international standards. So that was how to, very briefly, have the first ingredients for a good clinical research company that's internationally operating. Regarding offices, etc., we were one of the pioneers that said, we can actually work from home. And people used to say, you don't have an office. We did have flexible serviced offices, which were highly professional in many countries in the world. But we used to use those spaces to basically have important meetings, to meet clients, or when we really needed to. We needed to be more close to our customer and the professionals in the hospitals. We did have some key big locations in certain countries. For a big office in India, in Bangalore, for the Asia hub, and also one in the Middle East in Dubai. For that region, and then we had a big one in South Africa. We had the big Glasgow office, which became like an international headquarter office for everyone.
Okay, and obviously you started out as a clinical researcher, but you became the chief executive of an organisation. So were you quite removed then from that research element, or did you still manage to keep, I guess, your hand in with some of that stuff?
I think it's really important, even as a CEO or chairman of a company, to really understand what you're actually offering to make the best solutions for your clients. So clinical research is extremely complicated. There's a lot of regulations around conducting various trials in hospitals throughout the world, and it's different for different countries as well. So knowing, and also we're talking about patients and saving patients' lives and trialing new drugs in patients. So safety is such a key factor. So needing to understand all that, definitely involved in the key aspects of drug development. I felt I had a really good basis from my early education and my pharmaceutical industry experience, and built on that by learning never stops, and we were learning every day. One day we were learning about anti-cancer drugs, and then about how to tackle diabetes or obesity or something else, multiple sclerosis. That became a blockbuster drug in multiple sclerosis as well. So you need to learn about the diseases, you need to know about what the clinical treatment protocols look like and how to manage all that in an international project team.
Yeah, and how big was your staff team then, or how many people worked for you?
Well, it started with myself, but we were, many years later, we were around 700 team members, a lot of clinical researchers.
Big team, and you've obviously just not too long ago retired as president and CEO of ClinTec. What was behind the decision, I guess, to retire, and how has your life changed since then?
Yeah, well, when I first of all talk about the 700 people, they actually, everyone is very inspiring. They want to do the best, and they're doing the best they can in clinical research. I was very interested for them to progress their careers and have wider job opportunities. So that opportunity came for the world's largest clinical research organisation for us to be a part of that. So my 700 people joined the 70,000 other people of approximately $14 billion revenue organisation called IQVIA. So I felt there was a great career opportunity for the people. And all of the management team, I'd built a really strong leadership and management team. So at that time, I thought I've taken the company very far over the 25 at least years, that's like quarter of a century. What should I do for the next quarter of a century of my life? And that was a good time to move on to the next adventures in my life.
And so what are those next adventures then?
Well, one thing is entrepreneurship. I think it's something that's ingrained within us. And I wasn't actually looking for new opportunities, but I did meet young entrepreneurs who I thought would do very well. So I bought half the company, oilsandbloom.com, and have been supporting Jess and Claire to grow their business and make it global. And it's a luxury vegan organic company which does wellness products for the house based on aromatherapy oils, anti-anxiety mists and sprays and candles and other kind of products. And now they've launched the skincare as well. So been supporting them, plus doing a lot of work at the Strathclyde Uni. But I've always, one thing I can say for people that work really hard, and one thing I missed, and I should have put more focus on, was actually my own health I mean, and health and well-being. And these days, I think mental well-being as well for people is really important. So important aspect when I retired, semi-retired, you can say. You don't really like that word. Retired, moved on to my next phase, transitioned. My next chapter, writing my next chapter, is started exploring fitness. And I absolutely love it. I managed to meet some great people locally who are experts in their field of health and fitness and well-being, and learned from them. Even met, I was in London just last week, and I was boxing with the previous James DeGale, 2 times world champion and gold medalist, and learning from him about boxing. So, some of the things are very similar. How these people aspire and become the top. I've learned it's the same ingredients that we can all have to be successful. You know, a certain determination and courage to do certain things, that nothing is impossible to reach the top.
And obviously, I think sometimes in reaching the top, you have to make sacrifices.
Yes.
And you talk there about your health as potentially being one sacrifice maybe you did make on that journey. I guess, is there anything you would have changed looking back kind of 25 years in terms of things that you might have done differently with the experience and the knowledge you have now?
I think so. I think one of the things is business is always there. There's always going to be demands on everyone, no matter what they do. But I think they need to look after themselves first. And I did look after myself in many ways, and I had a great team to support me. But I think health is really important. Personal health is, and fitness, etc., is really important. I think spending time with family and having as much time with family. I have, you know, my husband and my 2 boys who grew up in the business as well. I did spend significant time with them, but I always am mindful of family and close friends and all that, and spending more time. So those kind of quality times, I think people should really value and try and incorporate through their life, no matter what stage of their life they're at.
That's really good advice for all of us, I think, if we're listening. And you talked earlier on about building a really strong leadership team.
Yes.
I guess I was going to ask you, what are some of the key ingredients to building that strong leadership team? And, you know, do you think those are applicable in any environment if you were to go to a different business and you're obviously working with a new business? Are you taking some of that with you?
I think businesses start with one person and they grow to more people, and it's critical also getting the timing right when you employ the next level of leaders and the leaders, and building a team. Team can have different aspects, you know, they'll have different strengths in personality and the way they, but they all should have a common vision and a common goal, and this huge commitment to delivering excellence. And for us, it was excellence in clinical research and excellence in customer service, doing anything for the customer and making sure the customers are satisfied. And having the right culture and values within the leadership team that they can actually share with all the other employees across the globe. So I was very fortunate to have built great leadership teams within ClinTec, and the team that supported me personally. Really great, really down to earth, and really travelled across the globe and met people all over the world. So people knew who the leaders were and what our aspirations were, and the whole company drove in the right direction. So leadership teams are important. And it was great within times of crisis, etc. Different leaders would come forward with their expertise or their strength and their way of doing things, where another leader could maybe be not so familiar with that area. So, for example, the chief of finance, I could call on for financial matters, the chief of commercial, who knew all the legal and every regulatory type of perspectives, and the head of operations. So different people have different ideas, but they all understood clinical research very well and understood what our common goals were.
I guess that's important, isn't it, to understand your product or what you're what you're selling, what you're
And I was
manufacturing.
really proud of them as leaders. They won against the world's top companies as our competitors, as Leadership Team of the Year or Leading by Example Award in America,
Right.
which is one of the
Most
toughest
competitive,
markets
yeah,
to.
absolutely.
And we're small, and the competitors are huge, and it's ClinTec and our leader that's won the Leading by Example award.
Yeah.
And culture is really
I think
important,
culture's
having the
so important, isn't it?
right culture.
Yeah. Because it does, there's that whole saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it is. I think if you don't have that right culture and you can't replicate that as you start to expand and you get bigger, then that becomes more and more difficult. You either bring in the wrong people or the values aren't there, and that's where I think a lot of the issues can happen in an organisation.
And one thing I can say about the leaders were what I really liked about them, apart from being very experienced in their field, they were really down to earth. Anybody in the company could approach them. They were approachable. People could have conversations with them.
Yeah.
They could be confidential as well. And they were very respectful. They were trustworthy. I was very, very proud of the leaders and absolutely proud of all the team members as well, all the staff on the ground everywhere that put in many hours of work for the company.
No, absolutely. So, as we've kind of outlined, you're an incredibly successful female entrepreneur, and how has that been in a world where I'd imagine there's still not that many female entrepreneurs in the kind of clinical world? How did you find that? What were some of the barriers that you maybe came up against? How did you overcome some of those? And what advice would you give to any budding female entrepreneurs that are maybe listening to this podcast at the moment?
Well, I certainly, over the 30 odd years of work, I've been in many situations where I'm one of the few females in the room. There could be 1,000 people. And, I'm one of the few business leaders that's a woman.
Right.
And other times you think, well, there are a few women here, but there's you're the only Asian woman as well. So I felt like that, but I've always believed in myself, and doesn't matter what people think. If you do provide the right service and deliver the quality, and you can beat the competition and you can prove it all, then I think people will have respect for you no matter who you are.
I get a sense you've got quite a competitive nature. Would you say you're quite competitive?
It's quite natural.
It's like an inner drive.
It's not about trying to be better than someone else. It's knowing what your own personal standards of excellence are. What are your own goals and what your metrics are going to be looking like. For example, for one client, what our clients really need. They needed 100% on various things.
Yeah.
How close are we to that 100%? Well, we're 99.7%. And so it was more driving towards the goal and keeping that. And then, of course, the clients are going to measure you against others. And you see your competitors are maybe at 90 or 93 or whatever, So you've done well from a metrics point of view.
And I take it wasn't always successful. I take it there were failures and there were setbacks and there were other elements that has come with running any organisation or business. How did you deal, or how do you deal with some of those setbacks when you come up against them, and what would you kind of advice would you give to people around building resilience and overcoming obstacles?
Don't give up is one thing. Basically, yes, right throughout the life of a company and starting any project, there will be hurdles, and nobody should think it's going to be plain sailing. We can all be optimistic, but we can be all realistic as well. Things often take much longer than you think they will as well. There could be hurdles in the way. It could be financial hurdles, or it could be some technical challenge with the product, or somewhere along the supply chain. So you need to find different routes, different questions. You have to ask yourself and find a different way of getting an answer, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You know, it might not be a very straightforward route to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Often there will be challenges along there. I actually, at the very beginning, thought, great, I can go back to my previous employer where I was part of the core team that developed a blockbuster drug, $1 billion drug, and got it on the market. So I know a lot about the drug, right? Because I was part of that team. Pitch there and get the business. And great pitch, but the company said, you're too small. You're only a little company. You know, Rabinder, we only give business to big companies. So I was a bit disheartened for a few seconds, but 16 years later, I went back and we became a supplier. We won the business.
Right.
It took 16 years to build to the level they wanted.
But I think that's one of the stories that comes out time and time again on this podcast is actually there's very few businesses that are overnight successes. It is sometimes 10 to 20 years, sometimes to really grow and scale and get to that position. But, you know, I'd imagine that 16 years might have felt quite quickly because things were probably changing for you all the time. Probably family life was changing, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Your business was changing. So, you know, and I think sometimes entrepreneurs don't always plot out where you're going to end up. But
We don't.
The journey's part of the fun of it.
It is, and you don't know, and you have a vision and an idea, and your journey might go in other different directions, you know. I never thought I was going to build a global company and have the most amazing team in, you know, in Australia, in South Africa, in America, and many other parts of the world, and we visiting China and places. So you don't know, but you try to have a vision and strive towards that.
And from all that travel, do you have a particular favourite country or place do you have a place that you love to go back to time and time again that you came across on your travels?
So for me, the overall global travel was special because wherever I went, I met people I called special people, my teams, you know. And when you meet the right people, they really make things worthwhile. So being with my Italian team in Rome and sharing special moments with them, there's 40 of them, you know, and we went to the Colosseum, etc. And it was very nice. And we had lots of presentations and learning about what they are doing. Same in Africa, in South Africa, the African team came, the Sub-Saharan African team came, and really understanding there is so vivid in my head, all these memories of me being in different locations. So I wouldn't say I have one fond country. I'm born in India, brought up in India. So that was one of the countries we were in very early on in clinical research. And it was a big adventure, you know, to spend a lot of money to build that office and the whole commitment there. So I have a strong passion for where I came from actually from India, Bangalore. But I would say generally overall, and then coming to Glasgow was the most amazing thing when I moved from 16 years in Germany to Glasgow. I said to a young graduate I'd just hired, can you do X, Y, Z? And I thought, this is going to be difficult for her. And she said, no bother. And I thought, gosh, I'm in the right place. People here think they can do things and nothing's impossible. So we're in the right place to build the headquarters here.
Right. And what brought you here? What was the reason for headquartering in Glasgow then?
I found you were talking about challenges and hurdles. I found it very difficult in Germany.
Right, okay.
Working within the German regulation, German environment, and not having exactly the infrastructure I needed. We needed a lot of creativity, flexibility and everything. Okay. Had that in Munich, but where I was living was in a small town north of Germany. It's very traditional small German town, but not all the infrastructure. I had a beautiful office in Dusseldorf, though. But I felt, and my children were basically in an international school there. I felt a good British education going forward would be good for them.
Right.
And my husband, after 16 years of building a dental practice there, thought it would be good to come back and see your family and be
Right.
with our parents.
So you had a familial connection to Glasgow.
We loved Glasgow, and
Right.
we came back here, and it was a brilliant decision.
Great, great. And I take it you had no problems in attracting that workforce here and maybe finding people with that creativity and some of the things that you maybe didn't necessarily have in Germany.
It was an unusual decision, people would say, in the business world,
I bet.
because how many global companies actually come and put their headquarters in Glasgow? Was I putting even more obstacles in my way? Would I be able to recruit the staff, etc., get the talent that I need?
Yeah.
But the very fact that there was a young, aspiring global company right here with its headquarters attracted people. People came from Sweden back, Scottish people, to come back and join our company here. My personal assistant came from New Zealand.
Right.
You know, she was here. And so I think we managed carefully to select very good people for the company in Glasgow. But what we also did was come to Strathclyde and other universities and really find entrepreneurial best talent and grow and nurture them. And that was fantastic.
Have you been recruiting, or had you been recruiting from Strathclyde for a long time then, and had a
we were recruiting
pipeline?
Yes, we were recruiting over the years, and I'm very, very proud of the university graduates that did join us and grew up in the company and have spent the last 10, 15 years there and are in their management positions, etc.
Yeah, and I think, it'd be great to see more businesses take that bold move that you took. I think we're seeing big international businesses coming to Glasgow, like your Barclays and others who are headquartering here now. But I think it'd be great to see more people think of Glasgow as a base, given our innovation infrastructure, given how well connected people are across, Scotland and the Central Belt. And, we seem to have a pretty good ecosystem from what I can understand. I guess from your perspective, what do you think is missing? What more could we be doing in Scotland? Because you've been around the world, you've seen other places. Like, what are we missing in Scotland to really take Scotland and Scottish innovation to that next level, potentially?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of challenges in Scotland. People talk about them all the time, actually. And I think we have great talent here. But for young companies, there is a serious lack of funding from venture capital, etc., or private equity. Any sort of funding is really required. And there's not as much a focus, I think, as in some stronger communities of entrepreneurship, which are there in Boston and Cambridge for life sciences in America, and obviously in the Silicon Valley as well. Those kind of communities, we need more of them here. But I think we need private equity firms to be really confident that they can recruit from here, that they can invest in companies here and grow them globally. These days, I think location shouldn't be so much of an issue. Everyone from the beginning should have a global mindset. So the location is almost try and make it irrelevant and put all the other ingredients that make a successful company in place. Yeah,
and have you enjoyed being back on the campus and engaging with Strathclyde students again? And
I get energised every time I come here. I learn. I actually learn from the students, and they have such a diverse diverse products and services and things that they're doing. It's just really amazing. They need to be more. The university is amazing as well. It does a lot of marketing. So the students need to be confident, be bold, and make sure they can network more and not be shy about that and really expose their ideas and products. I was talking to somebody just earlier on and giving a bit of mentorship, but they were very reluctant for a while to, although I know them for a long time, to tell me their actual idea. I think that some people get afraid that their IP will go somewhere,
I know, I read an article just last week, just that, don't worry that anyone's going to steal your idea, because, you've got to get out there at some point anyway.
You have to,
And sometimes I think sometimes it's a confidence thing too.
Yes.
And I guess if you're talking to somebody who's been as successful as you have as an entrepreneur, you might be reticent to maybe share that. But I guess I would encourage people to use that experience, and you can hopefully give them good advice, be able to kind of hold a mirror up to them, but also help connect them into your network. And I think that's one of the reasons we have the Enterprise Fellows here, is to actually bring external experience, bring people with real experience, but also help tap into wider networks that might not always be available. And so I guess I'd encourage any student who's lucky enough to get to spend some time with you to actually use that opportunity to leverage what they're doing.
Well, yeah, one of the things I think I want to say to the students is that not to give up, and not be afraid if every email's a rejection and there's no answer. I did, when I started my PhD here, I didn't have any funding. So the professor gave me, I went and looked up the grant awarding body manual. There's some big manual where you can get grants, and wrote to 1,000 organisations and 1,000 letters, and I got a grant.
Right.
I actually became a research assistant to the professor, the head of department of immunology. But I didn't give up. There was 999 rejections probably there, but I got the grant that saw me through the university as a member of staff. So I think people sometimes have to not give up too easily. And even in networking, people like your CEOs and business people are often very, very busy, and they can miss things. So go back to them if you think they're the right person you need to speak to.
Yeah, that element of persistence, right? And just not giving up. And I guess, we've touched a little bit on female entrepreneurs, and, I think it'd be great to see more women in entrepreneurship. What advice would you give to some of the, I guess, females out there that might be looking to start a business and are maybe looking at some of the barriers there? Is there any advice that you've got?
I mean, female entrepreneurs, they should have an equal footing, really, as their male counterparts. And they're certainly very capable.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they have challenges because they have to juggle home life. I had 2 young children, husband, and you have things to do other than just work. Do your work, building the business. So organising the home and family life is really important, and invested in that really early on. The very first money that I earned, I went away to get a cleaning lady and people like that, people that could support me so I could do the more, I could focus more on the business. And my family was well supported. So I would say that they might have to juggle a bit more their family life, or I think they shouldn't feel they're any different, and they should just go forward in a very bold and confident way, even if there's 1,000 men at the meeting and it's just them.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's loads of nuggets of wisdom that have come out of the conversation today, and it's really been a pleasure talking to you. Is there any last kind of words that you would leave our listeners with in terms of, from your experience and looking ahead, in terms of where you're going maybe and your next chapter, I guess?
Well, I feel I can say a few words. I feel I've learned a lot over these years, but I feel that learning never stops, and every day we should all be learning something. And we can also share our knowledge and experience as well. We should really open our heart, share our experience. Another thing I wanted to say was about remembering all core values that should just be there in normal life, like trust, respect, and love. All these aspects are there even in your business as you're building your business. Also wanted to say that life is full of challenges. There are many diverse challenges, but that's the challenge at that moment or that passage of time. There will be a time later after that challenge, which could be a very positive time. So just navigate that and be a bit more resilient or patient, or change something, do something, and be bold about that. And the last thing is, often see people that are and some young people as well, young CEOs, you can say, or younger companies, where they feel they're the CEO, they've learned a lot, I think this humility aspect, really being humble, and also sharing empathy, knowing how the other person feels, and really having a real human factor. I feel sometimes I was like the HR director, really taking care of my family of ClinTec, but taking care of the people around you. And that can be there in business too. So there's a lot of life lessons that can be learned that are in business that I feel I've experienced, still experiencing, that can be carried forward for anyone.
No, and it sounds like you really did build like a family at ClinTec. It feels like, in the conversation we've had today, they were all very special people for you, and you invested in them, and I'm sure they invested in you. And I think that element of treating each other as humans and not thinking about the people who work for you as a number on a balance or on a spreadsheet or any of that kind of stuff, and seeing their human side of things, I think, is really important.
And also the last thing is that that was what I'm saying about ClinTec and all those aspects, and which now is a large global organisation. It's part of Acuvia, but in many corporate organisations, they do care about the numbers. It is important. Numbers do matter.
Sure.
The balance sheet does matter. Revenue matters. Results matter, and rules and regulations matter. How else are big corporate organisations going to run and flourish and benchmark against other big organisations, Fortune 500 companies? So there's a lot there that we all need to acknowledge and learn about. But there is a balance between numbers and rules, regulations and procedures, as well as what all those other human factor type other aspects I was talking about. And it's having that balance that makes the biggest successful company, I would say.
That's great. Well, Rabinder, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for coming in and chatting to us.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Strathclyde University and Strathclyde Inspire. Amazing people here, and good luck to everyone, actually.
That's great. And that's it for this episode of Inspiring Conversations. Thank you for joining us, and remember to hit that subscribe or follow button on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts on. We'll be joined next month by another inspiring entrepreneurial leader. To find out more about Strathclyde Inspire, you can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter, or search for Strathclyde Inspire on the University of Strathclyde website. Thanks again. Bye now.